don't know how you cope for 25 years of like juggling being a single parent and also being a successful businesswoman with having this crippling depression. I mean, how did you manage that?
Well, sometimes I ask the same question, to be honest. Like sometimes I look back and I don't know how I did it, and I did it so well to the point that when I started talking about my story, no one knew about it, and it was a surprise, to people that I've been working with, and they were like, "No, when, how?" So,
Welcome to the Mind Health 360 show. I'm Kirkland Newman, and if you, your loved ones, or clients suffer from mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, insomnia, poor memory, poor attention, mood swings, exhaustion, etc., I interview the leading integrative mental health practitioners from around the world to help you understand the root causes of these symptoms, many of which may surprise you and suggest solutions to help you heal. If you like this interview, please do subscribe and forward to others who might find it helpful. If you want further information, please go to www.mindhealth360.com or find us on social media. Excellent. So, Silvia Covelli, amazing. Welcome to the Mind Health 360 show. I'm thrilled to have you. And in fact, this is the first one, the first podcast that I'm recording on a new series called Survivor Stories. And it's basically about people who have experienced mental health issues of any kind and who have come out the other side and to find out what they've done to help themselves. And so I'm absolutely thrilled to have you on this show because I know that you've had a wonderful journey and which I'd love you to tell us about. And so before starting, though, I'm just going to talk a little bit about your background, which is very impressive. So you're the founder and the CEO of the Healing Depression Project. You're an honors graduate from Boston College and a former social science researcher at Harvard University. You pursued graduate studies in finance and business and dedicated your career to entrepreneurship, becoming an accomplished businesswoman. In parallel with your thriving career, however, you faced relentless and chronic depression, exploring over 60 different treatments without finding sustained relief. Your personal struggle, combined with your extensive background in human transformation and mind-body connections, led you to develop a program that remarkably eradicated 25 years of depression symptoms, leaving you depression-free ever since. And this breakthrough later inspired the creation of the Healing Depression Project, and helping others break free from depression became your life mission. So I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here, Silvia. Thank you for being with us.
hi, Kiki. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And so what I'd love to figure out is, so tell us a little bit about your story and, what happened. Obviously you tried many different treatments, probably from conventional treatments to slightly more wacky and out there treatments. And I'd love to hear more about, what worked, what didn't, what was your experience?
Yes. So it was a very long journey. It was 25 years with depression, and I tried conventional treatments, so pharmacological approaches, psychiatrists, talk therapy. I did with the pharmacological approach. I did, took different type of medicine. That really didn't work for me. Actually, it made a lot of the things worse in many cases. It brought new symptoms that I didn't have, and it didn't take away or help with any of the other symptoms. So that was, I did a lot of the conventional, but I didn't stop there. I did a lot of, non-conventional treatments and tons of programs, retreats. It totally was over 60 different ones, between putting everything together. And in general, it was a difficult journey, especially because I was not finding any help like real help to get better. And there was like a lot of misinformation. So during the process, there were moments that I, basically was told by doctors just to accept the condition as what it is and give up my search for, for true relief, because that's what I wanted. I wanted a cure. I wanted a recovery, not just to, feel better, because that's exactly what was happening with me. It was this cycle. So there were moments where I will feel better, and then symptoms will return, at any moment. So I was looking for something long term and really to get, rid of the depression. But the message in conventional psychiatry is that depression, especially if it has become chronic or what they call treatment resistant, then is something that is going to be with you for as long as you live. And even when they prescribe the medication, it's not that they prescribe it for like, okay, Silvia, you're going to be taking this for 3 months, for 6 months, 8 months, a year, whatever time frame. It was never within a time frame, or never within a strategy of or treatment plan of what are we going to do after that, or what are the goals here, or nothing. It was just take it, and for how long? Forever. So those moments were like really frustrating, because just seeing this, figure of authorities telling you that. But I kept going. I continued, because I just honestly, just the thought of having to live with those feelings and those emotions and those physical symptoms for the rest of my life was not something that was, I couldn't contemplate that scenario. So I had to keep believing that there was a way out. And I think,
let me
yeah,
just ask you one thing. What were those symptoms? Because tell us a little bit, because I know depression has many different manifestations.
yes.
What were they for you specifically?
So a lot of physical symptoms, and that's why one of the things that, then now that I know it makes so much sense, is that depression is not only in your head. Sometimes it's not in your head, it's in your body. And it makes sense with the symptoms, because my symptoms were physical. And also when you look at the 9 symptoms to see if that a clinician needs to look at to see if the person has or doesn't have depression, some of them, a lot of them are physical. So in my case, the fatigue was number one. It was like a really complete like energy drain, like wake up without the needed energy to just do things in a functional way, that other things that for other people were like, simple, then for me it was a real struggle. So it was that a lot of like energy drain, that was physically. Also the other one was kind of also physical, like processing things very slow and difficulty like making decisions. So it was like cognition wise, it wasn't like, functioning to where I know that, that I can normally function. So those were like the physical symptoms that I had, together with some like really heaviness in the chest, anxiety, and just difficulty enjoying things, being together with people. So there was like a lot of things, but the physical symptoms were those two that I mentioned.
And your mental symptoms, so did you just feel like hopeless and sad? You mentioned anxious, because again, I mean, depression can take so many different forms. Like, what were your predominant emotions?
My case, it was a little bit of like lack of connection, just feeling that not not feeling passionate about like the things that I used to, and just being unable to connect with that, and just kind of being there as an observer in many of the situations. So just doing things because I was supposed to do them, and I was good at doing them because I was like extremely functional throughout my life. I've been and I am. So I knew how to do them, but it was really an inner struggle to carry them out because there was not I was not, I never felt like engaged with those things.
Yeah, it must be so challenging because you were very successful in your career and you had a daughter as well that you were raising, and you were functional throughout. I mean, I don't know how you cope for 25 years of like juggling being a single parent and also being a successful businesswoman with having this crippling depression. I mean, how did you manage that?
Well, sometimes I ask the same question, to be honest. Like sometimes I look back and I don't know how I did it. And I did it so well to the point that when I started talking about my story, no one knew about it. And it was a surprise, to people that I've been working with. And they were like, no, when, how? So it was like, shocking to them too. And, I guess the days that I was really like struggling like more than I could handle, then those days I would like just reschedule appointments or change things. And then the days that I was feeling at my normal good, I would do I would overdo so a lot of the other tasks. So it was like maybe a compensation system, I would say.
Yeah. And so you tried all sorts of different psychodynamic drugs, essentially. So, I mean, you tried SSRIs. Did you try mood stabilizers? Like, what were tranquilizers? What were the sort of key drugs that you were prescribed and that you took? And did none of them help at all?
Well, all of the ones that you mentioned, and because it was like throughout maybe a period of 10 years, I tried different medications. So I think like all the categories that you mentioned, like I tried them. No, they never help. Not no matter what. Maybe one that helped me with a little bit of like anxiety, but anxiety wasn't like that big anyway, so it was not worth it, like just taking the medication for for what I was getting. But no, like in general, like the symptoms were never addressed, and on the contrary, as I mentioned before, some new symptoms were there, like like one that I remember. I don't remember exactly which medication was, but when I go out, I remember being at a shopping mall, and as I was walking, I was feeling like the people like coming towards me, and I had to like get out of the of the shopping mall. That was something that I didn't have, and that then when I stopped the medication, I never had again. So yeah, so I just, in my case, I just decided to stop it. And there's a lot of research like backing that up, like how like medication is not, unless, I mean, if you're in an acute state, it's really good to help you get to a more stable place. But long term, it's not addressing the root causes.
Did you ever try and do any therapy? I mean, did you do sort of, I'm sure you did, but what types of therapies, like psychological therapies, did you try? And did any of them help?
Well, it was on and off. I did mostly what it's considered to be talk therapy. And this is the thing, talk therapy, it's helpful in the sense that it brings light to things that maybe you weren't aware of, and it shows you maybe why something is like coming up, but it doesn't really help you to work through it, to really elaborate those let's call them findings or new awareness. So you, in my case, and it's the case of a lot of people that I talk to now that they call like looking for help for depression, is that yeah, now they have a bunch of information and they don't know what to do with it, because sometimes the therapist can help them understand where this is coming from, but it's not really, it doesn't do the work of like taking them through that, so that is no longer like holding them back to the point that is like a problem for the recovery. Because if there is like a lot of trauma or limiting beliefs, then that's going to hold anyone recovery from depression. Even if the root causes, the physical root causes get addressed, that piece of the puzzle also needs to be addressed in order for the person to head towards full recovery.
Yeah, completely. And what about trauma treatment? I mean, did you ever feel that you had sort of trauma in your background? Did you ever have any trauma treatment for any sort of possible traumatic events in your childhood or traumatic reactions?
So I feel that I had things that I could work on, on childhood, and I did that work. The therapy that really worked for me when I tried was psychodrama. I was very hesitant because that's really out of my comfort zone, and it doesn't initially doesn't resonate that well with my personality. But there I was. It was a 7-day retreat with everything was a psychodrama. So it was like 6 hours or 5 hours a day of that. Again, I was hesitant, but then when I saw what it was doing for other people, because this is in a group, in our case, it was 7 people in the group. I was the last one to go because I was looking, and then, but as I was seeing the transformation in these people and what they were going through, I'm like, oh my God! I really wanted to try it even earlier, but I already volunteered myself to be the last one, so I had to wait. And it was fantastic because he really helped me in something that I had been working on for many years and in many different approaches, and that actually I thought that I was already made pieces with it. And then throughout that process I realized, wait, I more work on this is going to be really beneficial. So that type of therapy was much better for me. But therapy is very personal. And then also who the therapist is, that changes. It's because sometimes you recommend one type of therapy, but then it's really the way that the therapist is implemented that type of therapy is so unique. So it's really difficult. And even if you recommend the same therapist, if you have 5 friends and you recommend them all to your therapist because you think she's great and they go, some of those friends are going to come back saying Kiki, she's terrible. Yeah. So it is because you need to connect on a personal level with that person. So it's not going to work for everybody. So I guess with therapy, it's a matter of just trying different things, and especially different therapists, and see where you feel comfortable. And also checking out if there's a progress, because some people just stay too long doing the same. So if you're doing the same and going over the same thing and you see no progress, that none of your symptoms improve and your condition it's not getting better, then try something different, change the type of therapy, change the therapist, just move towards something different.
So you did that for 25 years. So you basically tried so many different things. You mentioned that you tried 60 different things, both therapies, medications, retreats, etc. So in the end, something shifted and something got you out of your depression. And so in a nutshell, first of all, how long did that process take of getting better? And how did you realize that you were better? Did you just wake up one day and felt better? Or was it a gradual process? And then what were the key things that you can identify that really shifted the needle for you?
Okay. Well, let's start with one of those questions. So things started to change for me when I finally made the relationship between physical and mental health. Because again, this is not something that conventional psychiatry brings to you, and not even the therapists either. They don't talk about this, and mostly because especially with the psychiatrists, they don't have those tools. They don't see when they go to medical school, the only tools that they have is really medication. So that's why they prescribe medication. That's why they tell you to stay on medication, and that's why they will change the doses, bring you into a new medication. But that's about all they were trained for. So even telling you to get off the medication, what are they going to offer instead of that? Because they don't have anything else to offer. And that's something that it's starting to change in some cases, but it still is very, it needs a lot of work. So when I did that connection on my own, because I started seeing oh wait, when I do, one of the things was sleep. I started to connect the fact that, when I wasn't sleeping well, then my symptoms were super strong and I was feeling, like even worse or the opposite. So I started to do like certain connections. And at that point, what I did is that I stopped like my work and I concentrated 100% on my healing, because that's another thing. I was always trying to heal on the side. And that's something that women, we do it so frequently because there's so many things that are more important and that we need to take care of and that we're concerned about. And then, like, let's see, like, for recovery, then you maybe like, well, I'm going to therapy. That's 1 hour a week. Then on Saturdays I cook, healthy. That's not enough. On Sundays I go for a walk. If you don't have consistency and if you don't make all these things part of your day-to-day life, then nothing changes. So I realized, I got to the point where I saw the connection between physical and mental health. And the other thing that really changed the game for me was seeing, as I was talking earlier, about doing these things on a daily basis. So I had a transparent look at my life and I saw the lack of integration that I knew. I had a lot of knowledge like in my head. I knew a lot about, things that will make you feel better, things, but I was not really doing that every day. So I stopped working and I concentrated 100% on making these things happen, because they take time, they take effort, and then you don't have much of that. You need somewhat like to be motivated in order to implement any change in your life. Definitely you need physical energy. So mine was, especially in some days, really limited. So I had to concentrate it only toward one thing, and one thing was, I'm going to get out of this. And as I went back to check all those programs that I have done, I put a plan together for myself that it was something that actually starting from 7 a.m. to all the way to 9 p.m. And it just integrated a lot of like, from like the physical things that I was doing, that included, exercise, but on a daily basis, meditation, a complete change in my nutrition. So like sugar, I remove sugar from my life. I started doing intermittent fasting and just, changing my breakfast, taking like carbs and sugars out of my breakfast. A lot of things that I was doing, but in order to do them, they require effort. If you're going to change your nutrition, it takes a while. You need to do, like your research. You need to, even from the ingredient shopping, and then who's going to cook that? Then, in my case, so I learned, like, I knew a little bit about cooking, but so I also like had to learn about cooking because I was doing it in order to make sure of everything, like what type of oil is it going into? Like, is this, toxins? Is this really organic? That's why I concentrated like 100% on this. And it was a program again that I put together for myself that okay, so those things that I mentioned, but it included so many other things. Like, I started looking at everything that I was doing in my day-to-day life. If I was watching TV, if I was watching Netflix, I would like study what I was watching. Is it good? Is it good for your mental health? Is it good? Like, is this something that makes you feel good? And I eliminated a lot of the things that I was watching. Same like what I was listening to. So I switched to like listening all the time to, really positive like podcasts, or I became like, really close with Audible, which I love up until today, and just like listening to like really great books and just encouraging messages and learning more about the condition. So I really took like a whole look about everything. I prioritized sleep above all things. It was a little bit funny because when I started this at 9 p.m., I will shut down like everything in the house. We call it TV, lights, everything. And I'm like, all right, this is the time to stop. and I developed a sleep routine like before going to bed. And so I wouldn't stay late again, watching TV or sometimes talking on the phone or working, which was one of my favorite activities. I had stopped working, so I was, I didn't have to do that, at least for that time. So I took initially a full month to concentrate on this. And regarding how long it took, I would say that within a month, I started to see some changes. The thing is that I was doing this completely by myself without support. So it took me a while. It took me a while to get there. It was like didn't have like someone that was cooking for me, or like not every day I had like the strength to go out like an exercise. So it was a process of like on and off. But then after that month, really I started like, as I was feeling better with more energy and motivation was coming back because I already saw some results. And I'm like, oh, wait, this works. So I stayed doing it for, I would say when I saw like really big changes, I was doing it for like 3 months. And how I knew it was actually mostly through my daughter. I mean, I knew, but I was too afraid to recognize the change, because when I was having a good day, I would say like, oh, well, this is a good day. Then became a weekend. And I'm like, this is just a good weekend. Then it was a weekend like, this is, one of those weeks that, that I'm feeling good. Little by little I had less excuses because weeks, 5 days turn into weeks and then months. So, and at some point I really had to allow that that recovery to enter my life and to see like the big change that all these things did, because it was like in a biochemical level I really was a complete different person. And going back to like the moment, there was this moment where I knew that things had changed. My daughter came to visit and I explained to her what I was doing. I'm like, okay, you can come. I would love to have you, but I wake up at 7 a.m. and I do this. And I told her the whole schedule. She's like, Mom, that sounds crazy. And I'm like, well, if you want to visit me, that's what I'm doing. And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to be working too, but I'll do some of those things with you. And it's okay if you're busy. So, but then like 3 days that she had arrived, I was in the kitchen. I had just, I woke up really early to meditate for a full hour. Then I went exercising, and I came back and I was in the kitchen cooking. And that moment I was like, full of energy. I don't remember exactly what I was doing, but she was in the living room watching me and she went, "Who are you?" So when she said that, like I knew what she meant. So immediately I said, "Do you see it too?" And she's like, "Oh my God, this is someone different." And all her life, she knew me with the depression. So basically someone that was all the time tired, struggling to make, like, just even if it was, whatever, like, I was cooking, it was something fast, even, and then seeing this person that had energy. And I was also talking at that moment, or what are we going to do in the after? And she's like, oh my God. So at that moment I said like, oh, I have to now just say that I'm, let myself feel that I'm better. And the thing that I did and that I do up until today is that I kept all those habits, because if you change something and it's working and it's giving you results, if you go back to your old self, like, like not movement, not sleeping, eating, tons of sugars and carbs, and especially like processed foods. So if you go back to that, your physical and mental health will, go to that place again. So up until today, I do not all those things because I'm like working so many hours a day, but I do for sure do the meditation, exercise, which I started just walking a little bit because it was just, going out of the house was already a struggle. So nowadays I do the meditation, I do the exercise, I prioritize sleep. So whatever I have not to do that will take time out of my sleep, and the diet, the nutrition. So those are the 4 pillars that I'm using up until today, almost 5 years later.
So, I mean, that's amazing. What an amazing story. So, just to recap, so the 4 pillars are sleep, exercise, meditation, and nutrition. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, walk me through that a little bit. Like, how much do you sleep? How many hours? What sort of routine do you have, first of all? And then I'll ask you about the other 4. Okay. But yeah.
So for sleep, I was staying really late at night, so that's something that I changed. As I mentioned before, I would just turn down everything and off at around 9, and I started having a routine before going to bed. In my case, I took a bath, and but it's different for everybody. Like setting the right temperature in your bedroom.
What time do you go to bed, and what time do you wake up?
Well, before I used to stay until late, like doing whatever. I guess it's more than the details. It's more of a mental shift in just making sleep a priority, and just whenever you see something that is taking away hours of sleep, then knowing, like, I started seeing that as me choosing depression. So I really stay away from those things, and just starting the whole process at 9 so I could be in bed by 10. And this is the thing. In my case, I need 8 hours of sleep. So if you stay 8 hours in bed, you're not going to sleep 8 hours because it takes some time to fall asleep. So you always need to add that up. So it's the time it takes you to fall asleep plus the time that you want to be like sleeping. So in my case, I have to be in the bed for 9 hours because it takes me, it takes me quite some time to fall asleep. So I started doing that. And even if I, just kind of like forcing myself, because I would just be tempted to, I don't know, go on my phone or do something else, or stay laid out, or, just something different that was not. So it was just the fact of choosing sleep and just, knowing that the body is healing while you sleep.
Amazing. And then meditation, how much do you meditate?
It varies. Like if I have a really, really, really busy day, I would say it's 25 minutes, but normally I do like 45 minutes. So like, that's for example, what I did this morning, even though I have a very busy day, but I really prioritize those things. So if I have to cancel something for work, or if I prefer to, do some work on Sunday, for example, but just having my morning routine untouched. So, and my morning routine consists on medication and exercise. For exercise, I do anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, and I can do much better because the only thing I do is cardio, and I know that's not what I need, especially like for my age and for so many other health reasons. But at this point, that's what I do. I started walking. Now I run. A few months ago, I ran a 10K. So this is unbelievable for the amount of energy I used to have, and that's what I do in the mornings.
That's amazing. And so you do that every single day. You
Every
run
single day, Saturday, Sunday. That's the beauty of having something so simple as walking or running, because you don't need much. So yeah, you can do it anywhere. So that's why I love it. Even if you, when you go to hotels, in their gyms, they're going to have that, or you can go out. Well, if they have a gym, then you have obviously like more choices. But whatever you do, if you're traveling to places where you don't have access to it, or if you don't need a class or a place to do it. So that's why, like, I really like it. And it works very well with depression, because the days that the person is not feeling well, then you just have a slow walk that day. You don't have to run, but then you can just, just put your sneakers on, open the door, and walk 10 minutes one way. When you have done 10 minutes, just turn around and come back home. That would be like a fantastic start, especially because you are getting sunlight. So that's the other thing I started doing, and that I do up until today. The first 20 minutes of any exercise that I do outdoors is without sunglasses or without a hat. So I, wear sunscreen, of course, and do not look directly at the sunlight, but allow the sunlight to enter through your eyes. That's really good for the brain and for your sleep cycle. So that's something else that I do. Like when I go out for to exercise or for a walk, I don't have my sunglasses on, for example. So all those things are really good. And just for the people that are listening that are struggling with depression, sometimes we're looking for this really advanced solution, and we're looking for a pill to do it, or this magical treatment that you will like lay down and wake up like 1 hour later, like feeling, fantastic. That, from my experience and from years and years of searching for this, that is not the case when something has become chronic. So it's going back to the fundamentals, to going back to the basics. Is what are we talking about? We're talking about movement, we're talking about sleep, we're talking about food. So that's those, even if we're talking about these three pillars, that would give like the person like a big change, and will move them toward finding
Healing.
relief.
Totally. And then the last pillar for you is nutrition. So what is do you follow a specific diet? Like what works best for you, and what did you find helped?
Yeah, well, if people could implement only one thing, I would say stay away from sugar. And again, with depression, that is, sugar is fantastic in the sense that how you link eating sugar with feeling better. But that is actually not the case. It might make you feel better at that moment, but then there's always, you go up, but then you go down. And that's something that social media and TV and everything like sometimes reinforces, because if you feel sad, what do? You eat chocolate or ice cream. And if you break up with your boyfriend, what is it that your friends do? They showed up at home with ice cream for you. You see that in every basically sitcom, like at least here in the US. And then just really seeing that is also like, what are you believing and what are you linking it to? Because if you link sugar to feeling better, then you're going to continue to eat it. But if you start linking it to brain inflammation and your brain not functioning properly and just really disturbing like all the general way your body functions, then really you start moving away from that. So that's the main change I did. When I try to eat like very little sugar, and when I do it, it's sometimes just honey, and again in a small amounts, because honey in large amounts, they have such a large concentration of sugar as well. And so that was one of the things that really changed the game for me. And having a breakfast without carb. So there was already no sugars, and I used to have oatmeal and honey was my breakfast. And there I was thinking that I was eating super healthy, because I was seeing other breakfasts, and I'm like, oh my god, mine is super healthy. And then as I started doing all the research and reading and learning more about it, it's not. Well, it was sugar and carbs at the end of the day only. So so changing that, to staying away from sugars and lowering the amount of carbs that you're intaking.
Amazing. And you also do some fasting? You do intermittent fasting? Is that
Yes,
part of it?
that's something that I started doing it, and I kept up until today, just because I love the way it makes me feel. Is my energy body just changed completely. I think, I mean, from so many things, but fasting has been one of the main things that really makes me feel more energized. So just, that's something that I do.
Okay, so then having healed yourself, and so now you would say you're completely symptom free? You are.
Yes. So
Which,
yes, I am. So I mean, part of the human experience is, there's ups and downs in life, and of course there are moments and days that you don't feel at your best. And lately I've been struggling a little bit with staying asleep. So those days, when I wake up, I'm not feeling like, like ready to run a marathon. But that's different. That's just, everybody goes through that. The depression is this like extended feeling, like it's like deep and is with you constantly, and it's those symptoms that won't, go away. So I do have some days where I don't feel at my best, but in general, like yeah, it's a complete different life, that it actually took me a while to recognize, like, how well I was feeling. And well, and then I have so much purpose and energy that I founded the Healing Depression Project, which is, that you mentioned at the beginning, to help others find that well-being too, because people with depression get trapped in years and years of this, with chronic and the so-called treatment resistant depression. And they just, ended up just living with that sometimes for their whole lives.
yeah, completely. And so tell us about this, because I mean, you've now dedicated your life essentially to helping others heal from their depression the way you figured out how to heal from yours. And so tell us about the program that you've put together, what it entails. You're about to launch it, which is super exciting. So tell us more about that and what your
Yeah.
dreams are, in terms of really, I think, revolutionizing the treatment of depression, really.
Thank you. Yes. So the program, while the program is inspired in my healing, it's not really the program that I did, in the sense that that's kind of the skeleton and the inspiration. But then I got together with amazing psychiatrists that I'm now working with in the project, like Dr. Achina Stein and Dr. Toups were at the very beginning of the project. And just when I started, like, just sharing the ideas that I had, what I had done, and the kind of program that I think we could put together. So what happened is that doctors join in to add all the functional medicine piece, with basically I was also doing, but on my own, like without like the guidance, without really knowing. I was addressing like physical root causes in my body, through the nutrition, through the exercise, through improving in general my day-to-day habits that I was not aware of. So now the program is really empowered with functional medicine psychiatry, and metabolic or nutritional psychiatry, and lifestyle medicine. So it's a 45-day program, where it's a 30-day at a retreat, and then 15 days of at home integration phase. During the retreat, then we do all the functional medicine work. What does that mean, and how is that different from conventional psychiatry? Is that in most cases, conventional psychiatry sees depression as something that is in your head. And as we were talking before, the only approach and tools that they have is medication. with functional medicine psychiatry is looking at the root causes in your body that is making you feel that way, that is contributing to how you're feeling. And in some cases, not only contributing, but actually causing all these symptoms. So it's looking at, at inflammation, it's looking at your gut health, it's looking at hormonal imbalances, nutritional deficiencies, toxins, infections, and so many other things that you may think that they're not related, but then they are. The connection is, it's one entity, your mind and your body, and try to separate them is, that's why we stay, trying to get better for so long, because we're trying to heal something that is, we're healing, it's their physical symptoms, but we're not addressing the body. So with the program, we do the full like functional medicine psychiatry approach. And we also do, nutrition again is fundamental for physical and mental health. And then, with nutrition, you will think like, why did it take this long to start making the link between what I eat and brain health? Which before it was very obvious for, for the heart, for example. Oh, if you eat, this is bad for your heart. But we didn't hear before like, oh, this is bad for your brain. And now that's starting to change, but it's, the brain is an organ too. And it's a very sensitive one, by the way. So of course it gets not impacted, but highly impacted by what you eat. So the second component that we have is, nutritional psychiatrist or metabolic psychiatry. Basically is through nutritional intervention, so through a diet, to address the metabolic disorders of the cells, and how, like, when you do that, because in metabolic psychiatry, it's been around for over 100 years, but especially in the last 30 years, there's a very solid research linking metabolic disorders to mental health disorders, and very hopeful research showing that, like through a nutritional intervention, that you can reverse those. And by this is a diet with no sugar, very low in carbs, moderate in protein, and high in good fats. Those good fats that the brain really needs in order to function. So we do it in the retreat. So to take away the struggle that I had to go to, that I had to do everything on my own, it took me a long time. It was very difficult. Most people with depression are not able to implement all those drastic changes on their own, or they don't have the support, and that's what we do. So we provide all the functional medicine happening at the retreat. And then we do the nutritional piece. There's also, we're working with like amazing nutritionist, Beth Supek, to help us with this piece of the nutrition, and with the chef that we have. So during those 30 days, you get that nutrition going on for you. And you start feeling like the changes in your physical health, just if it is regarding the amount of energy that you have, so that you are more ready to implement other things. So those are two of the main tools that we use in the program. And the third one is lifestyle medicine. Is basically your lifestyle habits. So what are you, more than habits, it is habits, of course, but it's like, what are you choosing on your day-to-day life? So what are your daily choices? Because what you choose affects your physical and your mental health. So what we do is a training to help people make that change, because change is one of the most difficult things for humans. And there I was, super accomplished in many areas of my life, and still unable to have that healthy diet every day, unable to sit down and do the meditation every day, wishing that I knew exercise was important. That was not secret, but was I doing it every day? No. So I got really passionate about what does it take to create a change, in humans. Like for us, what does it take to take you to that point of like, okay, enough is enough. I'm going to do this and I'm really going to stick to it. So there's a whole science that we use that is the science of habits formation. There's a way on how to do that it will like provide more results. So we help the person to break free or from habits that are like, negatively impacting their health, and help them to start to cultivate, to grow those new habits that will definitely help them to, like in my case, to keep the recovery sustainable over time. So that's why we also need the 30 days, because it's this like through repetition, you start getting into these habits. And we teach the entire thing as a training, which is fantastic because a lot of the programs that I went to, I mean, the program was good. Was I feeling better during the program? Yes, I was. But what happens like when you go back home? How do you continue that? So in our program, there's the philosophy that if the person cannot replicate it at home, we don't teach it. So everything that we're teaching is things that the participant will be able to replicate at home, and we're going to give them like all the tools, all the information. If it's for cooking, we're going to have cooking lessons. We're going to teach them about ingredient shopping. We're going to teach them what do you do when you go out for dinner, or if you're ordering out, like in those situations, or if you're traveling, because those things. And with meditation, you have the audios, you learn how to do the meditations, and how to really like go into them. And we'll also talk a lot of awareness, like why is this good for you and what is it doing for you? Because the type of meditation that we're going to be doing, it helps you to basically rewire your brain. So it creates new thoughts and new emotions to, of like health and happiness and just well-being. Because when you've been dealing with depression for a long time, then you have so many of those limiting beliefs inside of you. Some of them may be obvious and some of them they're not, but they are preventing you from getting better. So we teach all that, and then we help the person when they go back home. It's 15 days where basically we go back home with them. And so it's on a virtual way. In the morning, the person is doing, the morning routine, working on the nutrition and every other piece that we work at the program. And then every afternoon, we're meeting with them and checking. So how did this go? Did you do this? What were the problems and how can we help? So basically, we're helping with the integration, how to integrate everything from the retreat in their day-to-day lives because I know, and then, that you need to continue with those practices in order to stay well.
Yeah. That is amazing. I mean, what a wonderful, wonderful project. And, hats off to you. This is amazing. And tell me, though, there are a few things. So first of all, it's a very biochemical approach, which is very needed. It's very necessary because too few people are doing it, especially in a residential setting. So you have the functional medicine, you have the nutritional and metabolic psychiatry, and then you have the lifestyle changes and the habits and the habit formation. What about the psycho-spiritual aspect? So say you've had trauma or you've had a very difficult, stressful life, and there are certain things in your life that have created these sort of traumatic fight, flight, nervous system dysregulation. How do you address that? Because there are different ways of approaching, we're all on a spectrum. So the biochemical dysregulation within us that will be picked up by functional medicine can be caused by physiological stressors such as maybe Lyme disease or mold or toxin, or it can be caused, or a food allergy or too much processed food, too much inflammation, or it can be caused by, traumatic events, ACE, so adverse childhood experiences, or just very stressful events that can create the same levels of neuroinflammation. And so we're all on this spectrum of neuroinflammation, which could be caused by physiological or psychological stressors. Now, the beauty of your project, which I love about it, is that you address the biochemical and the lifestyle behavioral. But what about the psycho-spiritual? I think you do that as well, right?
Yes, we do. So we work, and it's a very 360 whole person approach. So is the body, as we have been talking, like most of the things that we've been talking, like address the body. For the mind, we have the meditations that I was talking about, and a lot of workshops on limiting beliefs and just in general, like your mindset and psychology. For the emotions, then, which is like where probably the area where like trauma would be, we're doing 50 hours of psychodrama therapy, group therapy, to address that, and also personalized weekly sessions of just talk therapy, just all, and weekly sessions of life coaching. So it will be those will be the components. And regarding like trauma being in the body, it's such a big thing. It gets stored in the body, in our muscles, in our joints. For women, is so much that gets stored around the hips, for example. So we're doing somatic work as well, which is, for people that are not familiar, is just through gentle movements and breath to help that trauma like move, through, through your body, and eventually like for that to, to leave your body, so that you can, like feel, clearly, much better. Also doing yin yoga, which helps a lot with that, that kind of like soft movement that where you allow that. And since we're doing that together with this psychodrama, then it's a great combination, because you're doing a lot of work, like some of that like heavy work, and then with this more quiet physical work, it helps to work on that. Trauma is something that you need to work for a long time, but this will give you what a reset, like a start, a new start, to see like new possibilities. But depending on what it is, of course, like when you go back home, you need to continue, which will be giving the person like recommendations and making the connections for them to continue that work. And from the another thing that we really work also, like going towards the spiritual perspective, is about inner peace, just building that inner peace and resilience, because life will continue to happen. You cannot live at a retreat, I mean, I try for a long time, then eventually you have to come back to to what we call real life. And it's just to build that inner peace, so that with the ups and downs of life, you have a better way of reacting towards, or acting more than reacting towards that, and really not allowing those things to take you back into depression, but just from a more stable, wiser perspective to address those things. And we also work on a little bit on like life purpose, like finding your big why, and building around that. And especially we work on the overactive mind, because it's this the mind that never shuts down, and it's always talking and talking. And from a spiritual perspective, basically it keeps you in the past, feeling remorseful most of the time about something, when it's thinking something about the past, or sad, or it's keeping you in the future, basically anxious about something that you don't even know if it's going to happen. And in so many cases it doesn't happen. But what that's doing is that it's taking the only thing that's real, which is this very exact moment. So we work a lot on that, on like just being able to enjoy the here and now, and working on quieting that overactive mind so that you can just, enjoy more of the little things in life that at the end of the story is life itself.
That's very beautiful, and it's very true. One of the things that depression robs us of is the ability to be in the present moment and to enjoy the simple things. And in terms of your target audience, so people who, because you're accepting your first cohort, when will the first program be? Is it a fixed entrance point? And what type of person, would you take someone, for instance, who had bipolar? What type of person would apply, and what's the process to be
Yeah.
admitted? How does it work?
Okay, so our program starts on March 18, 2025, next year. And it will be, as I said, 45 days, 30 days at a beautiful ranch in the middle of nature outside of Austin, Texas. And then 15 days when you go back home, and is especially designed for people that have been dealing with depression for many years, that have tried different treatments and have not found sustained relief. So that's basically like our target audience. Bipolar, it's fine. It's so that could also work. Anxiety is fine too. So it's just, and it's a whole process to apply. This is something small. It's only 15 people. Plus, we managed to get a lot of funds to offer really great scholarships that cover up to 80% of the cost of the program. So for those people to get the scholarship and to get admission to the program, we're looking for 15 people that are ready to change, that enough of that suffering, it's, they have had enough of that, and then they're at a point where they're willing to try something new, that they recognize that what they have tried has not worked, that they have been trying to heal on their day-to-day life in the middle of chaos, and no result has been achieved, and therefore they're ready to try something different, such as this approach that is a complete immersion, where you are your priority, where your main job or your only job is to heal. So this is so people that are ready for that, and that's pretty much it. Older than 18 for sure, and there's no limit age. So we have people that have applied that are 76. It's one of our applicants, and that's perfectly fine too. It's just more of being in that mental place of wanting to do the work and understand, as I was saying before, that there's not one magical pill, unfortunately, or something that will take these things away, but that you have to do the work, even if it's the physical work, the mental work, the spiritual work, the trauma work. You need to work on this, and that's what happens with chronic depression. So I want to motivate everybody that is out there to make changes in their lives, but know that no one else but you can make those changes. So you are your own savior, and the recovery depends on that work. And that's very challenging, I understand, because I was there, and with depression, making all those changes is really difficult. But if we're waiting to feel better and then to start doing those things, the problem is that those things is what makes us feel better. So it's just doing like a loving push and making that happen. And in the program, we do a hand holding system. So it's basically like in the mornings, like just to go and like for the walk, for example, it's like if you had 14 friends knocking on your door saying like, okay, we're waiting, are you coming? So it's that sort of like motivation to get you started. And as you start doing it and you gain trust and confidence in, oh, look, I can do that. Oh, yeah. And then that's going to help you later on to really stay hooked with this. And the invitation is that to schedule a call with me, so they can go to their website is healingdepressionproject.com, and there they can schedule a discovery call. Taking those calls personally, or it will be also with our head doctor, Dr. Achina Stein. She's going to be there the entire 30 days of the retreat, and an amazing functional medicine doctor with over 30 years of experience. So she will be taking those calls as well. And then it's like having a conversation to see if we are a good fit for you. And if we are, then we'll send you an invitation to fill out an application, and then we work from there.
Amazing. I mean, that's really, really wonderful. And I guess my final question is, I mean, as you're speaking, I'm thinking of a couple of people who I think would be great for this project and who would really benefit. But then the other thing I think is, okay, so it's great. I can see that it would be hugely helpful for them and that it would really shift them, and that then the follow-up would be really good. But then I imagine their life, which is super busy and overwhelming, and they have work and they have kids and they have all this stuff. And sometimes, depression can be a result of just overwhelm from life, your life circumstances. So I presume, I mean, in some ways you're encouraging people to really shift their lives, their lifestyle, their sense of, their habits, etc., so that they can not get into that place of overwhelm that will then lead to depression. And it's sort of recognizing the signs before it starts, so that you can say, oh, I'm getting overwhelmed. I need to go back to these lifestyle habits, or go back to the things that I learned in this Healing Depression project, so that it is sustainable. And I think that's what's really exciting. But also what's challenging is to make this program work in people's daily lives. I mean, you mentioned that you had to stop everything in order to do this and to make it work. But some people don't have the luxury of stopping everything and have to continue. So I guess it's a way of making it work in the context of their obligations in their life. Presumably you've thought of how to deal with this, long term, so that it's sustainable?
Well, the thing is that the person needs to stop things to really heal. Like, I'm calling it a stop and heal. And because we're talking about people that have been dealing with depression for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. So I think the only thing that they cannot afford is to continue living the way they're living. So, and that's the only thing that, because life, and they know it, it's no meaningful when you have depression, and it's a very challenging life. So it is thinking of, okay, the rest of my life with this, or giving myself a chance to fully immerse into my healing and recover. So, and that's what I did. I tried for over 25 years, everything that's out there that you can imagine. And I was never able to really feel the way I feel now until I fully concentrated on it. So that's the call regarding, like, like stopping your life. And then you're always helping someone, or you're always like concerned about work. But this is the thing. Once you heal from depression, it's going to impact so much more, like the people that is around you. I can tell you from my experience of being a mother, a mom that is depressed, that's not something that is going to be like that helpful for your children. So instead, if when you come back and you have found your own healing and you are strong, then that's going to become like, better. And all your relationships, and even the financial piece, because with depression, there's so many days that you miss from work. And not only that, there's so many, sometimes you have like a great idea, or you think of a project, but then you're like, oh my God, with the way I feel, I cannot take on that. So maybe there's this thing that you always wanted to start that you haven't. So when you heal, then all those things are gonna like come back. And think about it, if it was physical trauma, if we were talking about a car accident that you needed to, learn how to walk again, you wouldn't be saying that you don't have the time. You would say like, okay, this is where I am at. I need to give my full attention and all my energies to this. So why don't we give the same importance to mental health? Because what? Because we can pretend we're okay, because we can just suffer through it, because we can push ourselves to be in that meeting even though inside we're really not living. So it's just is this call of like, let's give the same attention that we would give it if it was this, like, as I mentioned, like a physical trauma, or any other thing that will require our full attention. So that's regarding just taking this time away. And that's why, like, there's a lot of, like, programs that are in this context, for example, like rehabs, because sometimes you have like all these triggers in your day-to-day life and you need to take distance from them. And it's the same with depression. Is a retreat means to retreat yourself from a condition. And then as you retreat yourself, you're able to see all those things in a different light and get the strength and get the wisdom to address life completely different. Plus, you're going to be feeling completely different from all the work that is going to be happening. And then regarding the integration, is everything that we do in the program is talking all the time about how to integrate this into your day-to-day life. We even work on a personalized program. How would this, for example, meditation or exercise work in your life? Because then if at the retreat you were meditating, let's say at 8 a.m., but at that time, that's the time that you drive your kids to school, then, we adapt that and we work together and put in a program, something that works for you. If you have to like start earlier or whatever needs to happen, or how that needs to be modified in order to fit your day-to-day life. Where do you live? Is there sunlight? Does it rain? What about the winter? What do you have access to? So all those things are taken into consideration in order for us to give you the best possible shot at keeping those habits. And then I don't think, because you mentioned like to go back to them like when you're not feeling well, but our program, what we talk all the time is about, don't stop them. So it's the call is like, of course, if you derail, there's always like the way to come back. And that's 100 times better than just like stopping. And with habits, sometimes that happens, like you can stop it like for a few days and you're like, oh my God, I have to go back to this. So in that case, yes, it's coming back. But the general message is stay on them because you're feeling better. This is helping you in so many things. So why stopping it? Is like, if you were taking a medication that is taking your headaches away, for example, just you wouldn't stop it if it's giving you good results. So that's the call regarding healing from chronic and treatment resistant depression.
Yeah, and it makes sense. And I mean, I'm thinking of another podcast I did with a guy called Kevin Hines, who jumped from the Golden Gate Bridge, and he's a suicide survivor. And he said, it's not that I don't have thoughts of suicide. I have them almost every day, but it's a daily practice not to act on them and to put myself in a situation where I have the best chance of resisting that urge, essentially. And so, but it's daily work. It's not like you're healed all of a sudden, but it's like a daily practice to work, for your mental health, whether it's resisting suicide or dealing with depression. There's a daily practice involved. And I guess it's like, even an addiction like alcoholism or any addiction that takes daily practice and awareness, essentially. So I guess you're approaching it in a similar way, which makes total sense.
Yeah. I would add that feeling well, like not I mean, you can feel well without having like those, like, if that's your case, like suicide thoughts, for example. You can definitely get to a point where you don't feel that, and you can get to the point where you wake up every morning feeling, energized and excited about your life, like I do. So that is possible. Full recovery is possible. So I want to just like say this message again, because medicine has, told us so many times that it's not possible. That I mean, I understand the struggles that you're mentioning, and that's amazing that he's managed to do that. But in some cases, and in a lot of cases, a full recovery is possible. But the thing is exactly what you were saying, that you need to keep the work, and that it takes daily work in order for you to stay that way. So, because I think now I'm in full agreement with that, that if you don't do that daily work, then you're not going to stay in that place of healing, and then you may go back to where you were. So in that sense, and yeah, you need to do the work.
Yeah, totally. Well, and luckily you're there to help. So, I think it's so much easier to have a place to go to be able to say, okay, I'm going on retreat. I'm going to have support. I'm going to have people who can, really help kickstart this program. And it's unique. I've never heard of anything like this. And so it's an absolutely wonderful program that you're bringing to the world. So well done, Silvia Covelli. It's healingdepressionproject.com, and you can find more information, book a discovery call with you. But your story is very remarkable. And I think what's so remarkable is that you yourself have been through this, you've recovered, and then you've consolidated what's worked for you and turned it into this beautiful project to help others heal as well. So really hats off to you, Silvia. And I wish you the very best of luck with this amazing project.
Kiki, thank you so much for having me here.
You're welcome. And it's a real gift that you're bringing to the world. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Mind Health 360 show. I hope that we've helped you realize that mental health symptoms have root causes that can and need to be addressed in order to sustainably heal, and have given you some ideas about steps you, your loved ones, or clients may take to start their healing journey. Please share this interview with anyone you think may find it helpful, and don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with our latest interviews on integrative mental health. If you want further information, please go to www.mindhealth360.com or find us on social media. This information is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or to replace medical advice. Please always consult your healthcare practitioner before discontinuing any medication or implementing any changes in your diet, lifestyle, or supplement program.